Oh, okay, so it's a Matsuda focus. Oh, Matsuda, okay. What's that actor? What's Misa? Matsui.
四つ葉グループ東京本社。
Oh.
今日は金曜。
四つ葉にとって都合の良い日は週末に集中している。
Right. Friday and Saturday, right?
ここのお荷物になりたくないからな。
But careful, Matsuda. Careful now. Oh. He's supposed to stay there, though. I've got to say, I am missing Ryuk.
顔と名前で人を殺せる力があったとしたら、
Oh, okay.
裁こうとするだろうか。
Look at
確かに
this.
世の中、いない方がいいと思う人間はいる。しかし自らが殺人犯になって世の中を変えようとまで僕は思わない。
You would.
いや、考えすぎだ。
探偵のエラルド・コイルのところにエルの正体を明かしてほしいという依頼が。
エラルド・コイルといえばエルに次ぐ名探偵と言われている男じゃ。
Coil?
一体誰がそんな依頼を。
依頼主は四つ葉グループ東京本社ライツ企画部長木田正彦と突き止めました。
Masahiko.
やはり四つ葉か。
大丈夫ですよ。
It's nothing new, right?
コイルという探偵も私ですから。今、世界の三大探偵と言われている
It's all him?
コイル、ドヌーブ、皆私です。私を探そうとする者は結構これに引っかかります。
このまま紛れて帰った方がいいか。
This is either going to end up being a masterstroke by Matsuda or
誰もいなくなるまで待って社内中物色するか。いや、
risky,
そん
man.
なことして捕まったら。
でも週末だからまだいいんだ。あんな何時に終わるかわからない極秘会議。
Whoa, okay.
月曜だったら会社。
Woo, let's go. That music.
日の会議。ビンゴか。
オッケー。彼に近づけばいいんだな。
Okay.
任せてくれ。
で、私はこいつのいる四つ葉東京本社の監視カメラや防犯システムを破れるようにしとけばいいのね。
絶対に四つ葉に我々が調べている。
Ah, shit.
気づかれたら
If
その
Matsuda gets caught now.
捕まえられなくなるぐらいに考えてください。
今殺すって聞こえた。キラ出た、キラ出た。
Ah, Matsuda, come on now, careful.
聞こえたぞ。こいつらやっぱりキラと。やったぞ、大手柄だ。
Oh.
なんだお前。
一人の判断で動かない。
Oh my god, everything.
龍崎。
どうした渡り。
Matsuda's missing.
ベルトで緊急サインを送ってきました。
どこから？
それがどうやら四つ葉の東京本社内からのようで。
CM にいかがでしょうか。
Oh man.
今までの話は忘れてください。
Yeah.
作戦考え直しです。松田のバカ。
この二人は見張り。会議室で残りの者は僕の処分を話し合ってるはずだ。やっぱり殺される。
They'll come in. Something's gonna
緊急
happen.
サイン届いてるのかな。っていうか龍崎は僕のこと助けてくれるのかな。
よー、松井。
龍崎。
俺だ、朝日だ。大きさ。
おお、朝日、久しぶり。
外じゃないみたいだな。今から飲みに行かないか？
今から？悪い、今日はやめとくよ。
なんだよ、また財布がピンチなのか？
ピンチ？ああ、か
Yeah.
なりピンチなんだ。
There you go, there you go.
バレバレだな。
松田かなりピンチです。これで松田さんが死んだら四つ葉の疑惑は確定的になりますが。
I mean, yeah, but
とりあえず少し様子を見ましょう。
ライトからの伝言。やっぱり遅くなると心配してくれるのね。もう仕事用の携帯に電話入った。
Matsui.
これ松からだよ。
松田さんからミサに電話が入った。
ミサさんにこっちにも話が聞こえるようにと。
Look at that guy. The con artist.
すぐ四つ葉の東京本社に来てくれ。
八神君、松田さんを助けられるかもしれません。ミサさんの協力が必要ですが、八神君の言うことなら聞いてくれるでしょう。
She might have to. Yeah.
ヌードにはなりませんが、水着や下着までなら OK です。
本物はものすごく可愛いな。
事務所からスペシャル接待の OK 出たよ。
あ、スペシャル？こんばんは。よろしくお願いします。
今夜は事務所の女の子たちみん
Yeah.
なおもてなしします。
おい、何か方向おかしくなってないか。
仕方がないだろう。
It can't be helped.
どうせなら俺は楽しむ。
ここなら龍崎たちが見ることができる。助かるかも。
Careful now, don't get cornered or jumped or.
龍崎、見てますか？
はい。
すいません、僕。
そんなことはもういいです。
はい。今来た8人、キラを使って殺しをする会議をしてました。はっきり聞きました。もう完璧奴らですよ。
本当でしょうね。しかしそれを聞いたのなら松田さんを殺そうと思ってるはずです。
He's not out of trouble just yet.
やっぱり
殺される前に死ぬことです。いいですか？よく聞いてください。
Oh, is he gonna be all like crazed and drunk?
いやー、やったやった。
Oh, did they ask him to jump? Yeah, he's gonna jump.
お待ちかね。松井太郎、ショータイム。
おい、何するつもりだ？
あれやった。
So they'll get him somehow?
大丈夫ですよ。いつもやってるから。やった。
The music.
大丈夫ですよ。
Okay, who's down there? He's gonna get grabbed and pulled in, maybe? Yes! Mogi!
やばいぞ。
まったく嫌な役だな。
皆さん、ここは私たちに任せて、早くお帰りを。
そんな。
どうあれ、目の前で死んでくれてよかった。おい。
Was that light? Standing up front? Kinda looked like him. Oh, no, he's right there.
私までこんなの嫌ですよ。松田のバカ。
Oh, great shot.
エラルド・コイルと申します。条件についてご相談を。
前金200万ドル、成功報酬800万だと。
Oh, this is great.
さらに依頼しない場合でも口止め料200万ドルだそうだ。
口止め料か。
やばいじゃないか。僕はもうこの会議から抜ける。
Oh, cold feet?
誰がキラか知らないが、巻き添えになって逮捕されるなんてごめんだ。
うわ。
羽鳥、お前明日には死んでるな。
待て、今のは冗談だ。
Too late for that, man. You showed some signs of.
やる、ちゃんとやるから。
で、どうする？コイルは知ってもなお依頼を受けようとしている。
金さえ出せば仲間になる。そういうことか。
そうだ、買え。いくら出してもだ。
そうだそうだ、買え。
Oh, this guy's regretting it now.
よし、コイルと契約だ。
エル、聞いてる？もう拍子抜けよ。
Whoa.
ここのセキュリティレベルは最低ね。警備会社と契約してるだけ。盗聴探知機さえなかったわよ。
僕が潜入してから1週間、なんかものすごく手際よく進んでるな。
この中の誰かが
では定例会議を始める。しかし8人ではなく7人だ。
Yeah, that guy's gone. Yeah. Should have stayed in line, man. Right then, look at that. Matsuda is in the limelight, or he was in the limelight in this episode. And you know, I've got to say, I didn't mind it. I actually like that they focused on Matsuda in this episode. And essentially it was a long time coming, right? And they set this up in the last episode as well. You know, he started to feel like he was kind of coasting, right? He was kind of just tagging along on the coattails, just, you know, entirely on optimism, right? I mean, he's brave enough. He's certainly brave enough to, you know, be on the task force, right? And to initially make that choice to be on the task force. But of course, you know, he noticed that he's not quite on par with the rest of the, you know, task force members. And at the beginning of the episode even, you know, kind of brings that to the forefront once again for the audience as well, right? They show us these scenes of him kind of being called out, you know, getting called out for being silly in serious moments. You see Ayazawa gets quite agitated, right? You see Chief Yagami gets quite agitated. They have to reel him back in a lot of times. And then, of course, there's that one shot of, you know, they establish all of the task force members as these grand beings almost, right? You know, so important to the cause. And then you've got Matsuda in the middle at the bottom, right? It was a great little frame. And yeah, you know, so in that sense, it was great to see him get his breakout moment, right? I mean, it was his breakout moment, but he certainly made things quite tricky for the task force, didn't he? By going headfirst into the situation, right? Now, you know, there's that great moment as L is explaining to the rest of the task force, you know, this is how you need to operate. This is the path they have to take, right? And then, you know, it kind of cuts back and forth, showing us Matsuda doing those exact things, right? The things, you know, the things L is telling them not to do. So, you know, essentially him kind of going headfirst into this opportunity, he kind of caused L and the task force to kind of enter reactionary mode, right? And essentially L had to rip up the plans, and he told them as much. He's like, forget everything I just told you. There's a new problem. There's a new task at hand that needs addressing ASAP, right? Now, you know, it's clear that Matsuda is not the brightest on the task force. You know, that's for sure. You see that he lacks the capacity for critical thinking or long-term critical thinking and foresight in relation to planning, right, for the long term. But he does have this infectious optimism about him, right? And, you know, you see that even though he gets in some tricky situations, he is able to think on the spot, and he is quite clever, right? His quick thinking on the spot really did open up, or it gave them some openings by the end of it, right? So yeah, in that sense, maybe, you know, even though it was a risky move, and, you know, if he was to ask anyone about this, they would certainly tell him not to, you know, do anything like this. Maybe he probably, I think it's possible he probably does have their respect now, or, you know, they can respect him more now for, you know, going through with this, or, you know, they can understand that he felt pressure, or he felt that he had to kind of prove himself to them, right? And be useful to the cause. Though in that sense also, you know, at one point I did think, oh, could this get him, you know, kicked out? But then they also show a bit of a time skip, right? And they show that he's still there, clearly. So yeah, you know, it looks like they... of course, you know, you see L call him an idiot a few times. But I'm sure L can probably also see that, okay, this did give us some openings, right? Matsuda putting this into motion and taking it upon himself, you know, to go infiltrate the Yotsuba Corporation. But going back to Matsuda, you can see that his efforts did lead to some success, didn't it? Because by the end of the episode, you see that now their focus is firmly on these 8, or actually 7, because one of them kind of got, you know, cut off, essentially. He paid the price for, you know, kind of being a bit too upfront about his feelings on all of this, right? You can see that one guy immediately told him, "You're going to die tomorrow," because these men. Now I'll get into that, but these men are quite ruthless. They're quite cutthroat. You go back to Rem, who even noted that humans are disgusting, and this is based on the behavior she was seeing through that one guy. They haven't shown us yet who the one guy is, but yeah, that guy made a mistake. He should have just kept to himself, but he stood up and voiced it in front of all of them, and he almost immediately realized that he made a mistake. You try to see him backpedal and try to get on the good side again, and make it seem like he was just joking and he wants to just do it right. But no, it was done. He was finished. They were just ignoring him at that point, right? So yeah, they are ruthless, but in that sense, it is down to just 7 now out of hundreds of higher-ups, perhaps, right? So yeah, his efforts did really dwindle it down, didn't it? In that sense, it's getting closer and closer. I feel like they're going to get busted quite soon. I can't see, this playing out more than, 2-3 episodes at this point in time. They're getting quite close now. I think, and another thing that makes me think they are about to get busted is because, on one end, they are quite ruthless and cutthroat and careful about their proceedings. But on the flip side, they're also quite careless about their proceedings. It's kind of crazy. You see the thief on the rooftop, and she's surprised and shocked even at how easily she was able to break through security and stuff, right? And crack through, essentially. They do have a bit of a laissez-faire attitude, don't they? You see Matsuda gets all the way up to the conference room, right? I was quite shocked, the moment I see Matsuda in that hall, that really fancy looking hall, I was kind of shocked at how close he got. He got up to the door. He was able to hear things like kill or conversations that have terms like kill and Kira and all of those, right? So it was quite easy for Matsuda to, just take all that in. Again, Matsuda overheard the two guys just openly speaking of this secret meeting, right? And it happens to coincide with it being Friday, I believe, or Saturday. I think it was Friday. So yeah, they are quite careless, but also they are intelligent as well. You have to be to get in those positions, those high-ranking positions, and climb up the corporate ladder. You have to be intelligent, and essentially you do have to be ruthless and cutthroat. That's for sure, right? They did manage to get the police to just completely back off from the Kira investigations, right? And they did have plans of essentially killing Matsuda. Until the whole plan gets put into place to rescue Matsuda. And Misa, of course, helped out as well. She was actually a great help in this, wasn't she? She came clutch. Now, yeah, so on one side, they are quite careful. They, immediately saw the threat of this one guy saying, oh, he wants out. He doesn't want to be part of this anymore, and they immediately just crossed that name off the list. He was gone the next day, and they noticed that, right? They noticed that the task force right at the end that instead of 8, there's just 7 now. But then on the flip side, they're actually quite careless and laissez-faire as well, right? So that's why I think they're going to get busted soon enough. They're intelligent, but they're not even in the same realm as people like L or Light. Right, so they'll get busted soon enough. And if they do get busted soon enough, or the one guy who is the main guy who actually does the writing in the Death Note, is L getting closer and closer to this elusive Death Note, right? Finally getting to see the unknown, right? The one thing that he just didn't know about, that he was in the dark about. So in that sense, it's also getting to a potential return to form, essentially, for Light Yagami as Kira, perhaps, right? That could be around the corner as well. Again, I firmly believe from the beginning, right at the moment he gave up the Death Note to Rem in that forest, there's no chance he just, put this into motion without knowing that he can get the Death Note back, right? That he can get the memories back. I don't buy for a second that he just decided, maybe I'll get a fresh start, square one, just give up the Death Note. No chance. Someone like that, someone like Light Yagami, that ego, right? and the situation he found himself in, you know, to have that type of immense control at his fingertips, right? The god complex, essentially, it was in full force. No chance he's just going to give that up, right? So, like I said, I'm sure he got all of the answers out of both the Shinigami, or, you know, got everything clarified before putting this plan into motion. So yeah, it feels like once they do catch these people, and they are going to catch them, you know, you can see that there's a lot of cracks in their plans and how they operate. Then it'll become interesting, right? If L gets to see the Death Note, or he finally finds out about the Death Note, and how, or I mean, like I said, I think that I'm sure there's a plan, but it'll be really cool to see how this plan plays out. How Light manages to get those memories back, or gets the Death Note back into his possession, and, you know, kind of turns back to Kira. Speaking of Light potentially getting that Kira persona back, and, you know, the memories, perhaps, or just everything that's kind of attached to, you know, being that Death Note user he was before he gave it up. In this episode, something quite interesting happened. You see Light Yagami finally kind of, you know, you see he's getting a moment to himself to finally actually think about this. He poses the hypothetical to himself, right? This new Light Yagami. I mean, new to the audience at least, right? Because again, like I mentioned a few times now, I only really got to see a bit of the Light Yagami before he comes in contact with the Death Note, right? Though, you know, I still believe the Light Yagami they showed back then, before the Death Note, and the Light Yagami now, they're still quite different. Now, again, I feel like that does come down to the fact that now he is being challenged, right? This genius intellect is being challenged. He is putting it to good use, right? And he is able to kind of fulfill that sense of justice through this task force, you know, alongside L. But back then, he didn't have any of that, right? And he did come across the Death Note, and the rest is history. Could I do this? Could I punish evildoers if I had the capacity to, you know, kill them just by seeing their faces and names? You know, could I do something like that, right? And he's having a tough time thinking that he could possibly do anything like that, right? So it's a really interesting and really cool moment, as the audience knows he does go down that path, right? But this Light Yagami doesn't think he could, right? And essentially, you know, even that Light Yagami, in episode 1, he does tackle, or, you know, he kind of wrestles with these moral questions, or the morality of all of this, right? This is around the time there's that scene of him in the rain at night after he's clearly taken out a few people, right? And you see that he has this reaction to that he's actually killed a few people now. And you see that he does struggle. He does, you know, and he's starting to question the morality of this. And, you know, how could someone pass judgment on them? You know, should someone be able to pass judgment on them? Could someone pass judgment on them? And should that be me? You know, since I do have this opportunity, right? I do have the capacity to do this. So should it be me rather than anyone else, right? Essentially, you know, the feeling there... It's that thing again, right? He was trying to convince himself as well, you know, now that he has killed these people, that maybe it is his responsibility to continue on this path, and maybe this was the right thing to do, and maybe he was presented with the Death Note for that reason, you know, and if someone else found it, maybe, you know, they might go down a different path. So it's his responsibility to continue, right? I felt like he was trying to convince himself of that. So it's interesting to see this Light Yagami, you know, start to think about that again. But again, you know, the difference is now he's fully occupied and it's fully devoted to this task force and finding Kira. But, you know, again, how long is that going to last, right? Sooner or later, they are going to bust these people. And I feel like his plan is going to come and, you know, start to play out of how to, you know, get the recovery plan, as I called it. Now, you know, I tackled this hypothetical a few episodes ago, I think. There was a long segment about this. If Light Yagami now, once again, was to run into the Death Note, could it end up being the same thing, you know, him turning into Kira? Now, of course, at this moment in time, he is preoccupied and he is, you know, fully dialed into this investigation, right? And he's being used. His capacity is being, you know, utilized here. And he is being challenged. He's being fulfilled. But if he wasn't part of the task force, I do believe that if he came across a Death Note, once again, I firmly believe it would go down the same path for him. Yes, you know, it's been established for some time now that, of course, the Death Note does play a part in corrupting the user, that's for sure. But you still need to have it within you, right, to be able to do those kind of things, right? It's essentially a tool. It's a tool that does corrupt, but, you know, it takes two to tango. Like I said, Light Yagami and the Death Note ended up being just a perfect match. And, you know, speaking of the con man and the thief, the professional up top on the roof, you know, I'm not sure if they're going to go into any sort of backstory of how L even knows them, but it is quite fascinating that he has these kind of friends or contacts, right? Is it possible that someone like Chief Yagami or maybe even Light could ask him about how he knows these people, right? How they came to know each other, how, you know, he met them. They've established that L is open to all kinds of, you know, angles and methods. So it's not that shocking that he does have these kind of associates, right? In that sense, is it possible in his past he's even kind of, you know, infiltrated, you know, posing as a con man or a thief or, you know, another type of person, because you see in this episode he does have multiple aliases as other, you know, detectives, you know, famous detectives. I mean, they've established that L is the best detective there is. So, you know, I feel like to be the best, to be above anyone else, you have to take all kinds of angles, and they've made it clear that he's not afraid to use questionable methods, right? You know, I feel like to be the best detective, you can't just be, you know, straight-edged, right? By the book. He's open to it. He's open to different angles. He's open to not doing it by the book. That's for sure, right? He's got associates that are con men or thieves, right? And he himself might have played that part, infiltrating, going undercover, perhaps, you know, to bust a case or, you know, to figure out a case, to crack a case, sorry. So yeah. I find it really cool that he does have these kind of associates. And that he's not afraid to use them or call them in if needed. Right then, I think that's about it for this episode. It might be a bit of a shorter one in terms of the post-episode discussion, but I feel like I've talked about everything I needed to cover or felt the need to talk about. I liked that episode. I really did. I like the focus on Matsuda, the focus on a side character, you know, giving him his chance in the limelight, right? And it did progress the story as well, right? So I liked it. I really did like that episode. If you enjoyed it, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts on the episode. If you're interested in early access or full length to this episode, consider checking out the Patreon page, check out the different listings there. Once again, it's only an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. And the link is in the pinned comment, in the description, alongside the social media. And yeah, I think that's about it. Great little episode, quite enjoyable in my opinion. So yeah, thanks for checking that out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. Until then, take it easy.